Hello everyone, Comrade Snake here. It's been a while. Sorry for the delay. I've been busy, really busy with a new job and getting all that stuff adjusted and a lot going on. Now, I know last time I said I'd probably be doing Salerno or Vietnam. Vietnam would be very heavy and I didn't want to jump right into something else very heavy after I played Into the Woods. So I decided to go for Salerno. I played that off camera, and I really enjoyed it, but it didn't seem very exciting for actually like doing a playthrough. I know there's a few others that are already up on YouTube. Some people playing Salerno and stuff, and they're all right. They're fun. They're interesting to watch. I think Cataclysm now did a decent one. There's some other ones that are out there, and I didn't really, with them already being out there and it being not particularly exciting to film, at least in my estimation, I decided not to film it. But I played through a couple times of the full campaign because it plays pretty quick in the avalanche scenario and stuff, and considered making a review of it. But there's also already some out there. I still might at some point, but for now I'll just say Salerno 43 is a good game. It's not my favorite of the 40X series that I've played. I still enjoy Ukraine 43 and Holland 44 more. That also might be a kind of a scale thing, and there's more kind of things to decide and figure out. You know, I'd have to think through it maybe a little bit more, or replay one of those just to kind of get a feel for it. But Salerno 43 is good. I'll say that for now, and I think it is a good introduction to the 43 system, or at least a decent one. You know, to get someone kind of into the idea of some of the base systems and then move on to one of the larger games that I think are more fun overall. That's not a knock against Salerno. It's just not hugely compelling, I think, as a filmed LP. So when I was trying to decide what to do next, I realized I had this game sitting on my game pile, and I never really got it out to the table because I've had it for a while now. And ever like really sat down and like actually went through and played it. And I thought, well, there's not a whole lot of videos of it on YouTube. It's very interesting looking. That's why I got it, of course. And I like the subject matter and the stuff going on. So why not take a look at Fitna, Global War in the Middle East? So I'm going to go just a very brief overview of the kind of like basis. I should say it's by Nuts Publishing, the French company. I think I have another game in there, so I'd have to look again. Designed by Pierre Rizzo. I apologize to any French speakers and to Pierre himself if he happens to see this, if I mispronounce your name. But anyway, so we're going to take a look at this game, probably run through a few scenarios. I set up for the scenario number 1, which is the Syrian Civil War. It's a short scenario. It doesn't use all of the advanced concepts. It just kind of get the basics down. But a little overview. So of course we have the Middle East here. So we have Syria, part of Israel, Turkey, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, part of Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and part of Iran over there. And then there's also a there's Russian units that can come onto the field. There's the American units, British units. Like there's other international forces that come on the field, even though they're not actually present on the map. But that can happen through the international tension meter, which is not actually used in this first scenario, but I still put the chip down, but there's not actually going to be that moving up in this opening. Oh, and lift that guy out. In this first scenario. But that's what can eventually trigger like Russian and American intervention and stuff. Turn marker track. You have reinforcement batches, which are outlined by the scenarios for different powers. So Saudi Arabia player, for example. But we're not going to be using them for this. There's only 2 players in this scenario 1, the Syrian Civil War. There is a Syrian player, of course. And then there is the Free Syrian Army, which is controlled by a Turkish player for the sake of the scenario. That's, the gist of what's going on here for the 6 turns. So we have the kind of opening start of the Syrian Civil War here. So we, of course, have Syrian units amassed around the east area here, near Damascus. So I will say I was trying to figure out how to orientate stuff, and with the camera and all that, and just with my setup I decided to go with map sideways and units facing this way, which would kind of be sideways orientation to the map, but I think it makes more sense with a camera. Let me just pull up this 4th Armored Division so we can take a look at units. So we get the country with a kind of a colored background. It's a little different depending on the country to kind of go with it. Designation, and then we get we also have a reduced side for not all units, but quite a few. And then we have their attack value, defense value in the middle, movement value, and red means that they can do an exploitation move during an offensive. And then we just, like, for instance, here's some Hezbollah militia, which are controlled by the Syrian player, so they're a lot weaker, but they're good for holding territory, militia units, that is. And then there are also there's some neutral-ish PYD Kurdish militia that are on the map. The brackets means this unit doesn't move, it just defends. So this is just some kind of defense units that are around here, and in the kind of this other part of Syria and Turkey, which has a little bit of stuff. There are other Turkish factions that can be involved in the game, but not in this first scenario. And then we have some, like, isolated units in these other areas and stuff like that. We have some Syrian units that are currently cut off with some militia and some injured armored brigades and such, cut off by these Sunni militia units, Al-Sham militia units, and then there's some Free Syrian Army units as well in some of these spots. Where are they? I know they're around here. Oh, there's some cut off militia. I thought there's at least one Free Syrian unit that starts on the board. Am I crazy? Let me just look at this one real fast. Oh, it's one in Idlib. And the rest are militia right now. Okay, he's got to be in here somewhere. Oh, there he is. So here's a Free Syrian Army mech division. More Free Syrian armies can come off with the right card play. So this is a card-based game, or card-driven game. So each player basically gets 4 cards, and there's 2 decks. The camera just a bit, sorry for the shake. So we have 2 decks. We have asset cards and event cards. So asset cards are basically used primarily for like combat. So example, close air support player commits his fighter or bomber squadrons for cast mission. 3 column shifts, attack or defense on the combat resolution. So when they play that during a combat for a battle, and then you get your effect. There's also these cards have op values, which are used for actually conducting actions. The game's fairly simple and straightforward in that sense. So let me show you these event cards, and then I'll go over the sequence. And then event cards, you have things. So you still have op values. You got your little thing here. The active player selects 3 spaces in Syrian, rolls 1 for every Syrian unit present in these spaces. Blah blah blah. You roll that +1 international track. Cannot be played on turn 1. So turn 1 can't be used this, but you get a thing here. So the Syrian player, for instance, if he had this card, he of course would not play this for the event. He would use it just for like ops values. But that kind of goes in the sequence of play. You get the initiative player by the scenario, and then each player is going to be going through, starting with the initiative and kind of working in whatever the scenario says the order is. You do event cards. So some of the event cards in here are also what give you reinforcements or let you do replacements for lost units. So that's kind of why you want to be drawing cards from there. I guess I didn't actually say. So every player starts with 4 cards. You draw 4 cards, and at the end of turn, you draw up to 4 cards. There are chits called Joker chits, which are not in this scenario, but they can be played to draw more cards, and then they're expended. They don't get used again. You lose them, but you get those extra resources. And the cards are you choose however many of which deck you want to draw for the player. So you can draw 3 events in 1 asset. 3 assets, 1 event, any combination, all events, all assets, depending on what you think you might want to be doing for the round, or at the end of the turn for next round, and then that's pretty much how you go about. So you do that. You check supply. So events, check supply, planning, which is where you play 1 or 2 cards for the ops values, and then you spend those points to conduct. You distribute how you want to those points. So if you spend, say you spent a total of 6 out, you played a card for those 8 out value. You use 8 ops points. You decide how many are going to be used for movement and how many are going to be used for offensives. And then each point in movement allows you to move 2 units. And then each, and by the way, on this movement rating, terrain has no effect on movement. So that doesn't matter. Terrain basically just works for one. It just has a nice look to it. And if I remember correctly, it doesn't even affect combat. I think it's just kind of a aesthetic thing. But I want to double check that because I can't remember for sure. No, okay, no, they do have combat modifiers. I'm silly. Yeah, they do have combat modifiers. It's actually over there. But yeah, so there are combat modifiers for mountains and urban areas and swamps. Anyway, that's it. There's no movement penalties for anything like that. And then we do offensive. So each ally point gives you 1 offensive with a stack of 3 units. 4 for ISIS, so you can go up to 3 units per hex, basically. Except there's a slight restriction on Turkey. They can only have 1 core-sized unit per I keep saying hex, but I mean per space. And then you can do your attacks, strategic movement, if you that's something you can do, and then you draw your cards, and then you move on to the next player. So a lot of the action of the game is also going to take place through these events. For this first scenario, a lot of the cards have been stripped out, especially the high tension cards. So for instance, I apologize, I kicked my stand there. For instance, the carpet bombing card, high tension. So you need to have high tension for it to happen, and US card approval if you're not the US player. And select 1 space and blah, 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 do this. So these cards usually have a high impact cards, but they you have to have a certain threshold of the tension meter, which means bad stuff's already happened. And then, of course, you can kind of see it over here, too, is that there are spaces basically marked with the ISIS flag. So that's where ISIS units can spawn. Some scenarios start with them, of course. And card plays will, in the early game, card play will spawn ISIS in event cards if you want. And so ISIS works differently than the other factions. They're not controlled by so they attack everybody effectively. If you notice a cut there, sorry, maintenance guy on the across the neighbor was pounding on the door, on the neighbor's door, and yelling. Anyway, let's look at the actual situation for this first scenario, the civil war in Syria. We could kind of see a little bit. In fact, you know what? Hold on, let me make a slight adjustment here just to get it a bit closer and more legible. So we have Damascus, the capital, of course, with a pretty substantial force sitting on top. Some big Syrian units kind of around it. We have some enemy militia units down in the south area here, or I guess it's not. It is the south, but if it was orientated, the map was orientated north-south, they'd be kind of south west. But anyway, down here in Dara. I'm going to also apologize if I mispronounce some of these names. I'm not great at the kind of Arabic pronunciation for a lot of them. But anyway, so we have that. We have Syrian units. We have some Hezbollah units in the kind of border area in Lebanon that can be brought into play. And then we have a lot of, at the moment, militia units. And some, like I said, that one minor Free Syrian Army mech unit, which will provide some striking power. These chips are also, by the way, these are pretty big counters, and they're a little too big for my tweezers, so I'm probably going to have to use my hand. But that's okay, there's actually a lot of space with these, the map space and all that for the most part, so I can fairly easily use my fingers to get in there. And then we have these Kurdish militia, which I kind of mentioned, are just kind of neutral and could potentially do some other stuff. And then Aleppo has a Syrian force there that's still pretty decent, especially with that infantry unit or special forces unit brigade in there. Are they supposed to be isolated? Let me just look at something real fast. Aleppo. No, they're not. Okay. Seems like they would be, but I guess not. Oh, that might be at the supply center. That's why. Never mind. I see it. Aleppo's a supply center, so they're not isolated. That's important. Okay, I didn't realize that. Now I see why Aleppo is very important there. And yeah, so that's kind of the gist of the start scenario. I will, the next video, I will start going into that. Or I should say the next gameplay video. I have an unboxing to do. I'm not sure if I'll do it before or after I do a playthrough of this scenario. Yeah, I got a new game that I'm going to do that unboxing for that. That'll be a surprise. And then, yeah, so I will see you on the next video, and we're going to fight out this scenario.